Welcome, everyone, to the ComedySportz Podcast, starring your host, Christine Capriolo. Today, a man who's doing it from the dugout, Mark the Moleman Mohelnitzky.
Hey, welcome to today's ComedySportz Podcast. I'm super excited this week. Oh my God, it's like a comedy crush. I have Mark Mohelnitzky. Mark, thanks for coming.
I would do anything for you, Christine. It's my pleasure to be here.
Oh,
I was honored. I was very honored that you asked me.
Well, you are a huge part of history in comedy sports.
I'm very old.
That's a nice way of saying you're old. You've performed in Madison, Milwaukee, and LA.
Correct.
But we're going to get to all of that.
Okay.
Where are you from, Mark? Tell me
I
where
grew
you're
up
from.
in Madison. I was born in Madison. I was raised in a town called Monona, just outside of Madison.
Which is like a suburb.
It's a suburb, yes. Monona Grove High School.
Okay. And what did you want to be when you were a kid?
First, I wanted to be a baseball player.
Okay.
And then I was so bad at baseball, like legendarily, like the kid you bat last and stick in right field, because there's nothing he can do to help your team. I would go up there and try to get hit by the ball because I wanted to run the bases so badly.
Then you wanted to get a walk.
Well, I could be on base, and that looked like fun to me, and I wasn't going to get there hitting it.
Okay.
And I'd be the kid in the outfield where they'd hit the ball to me, and I'd run in, and then I'd go 40 yards over my head, and I'd have to run back. It was terrible. So that was gone pretty quickly.
But you've always been a fan of baseball.
Huge baseball fan, so I wanted
Brewers.
to be, I fell in love with radio at a very young age. Yeah, I'm a huge Brewers fan.
Yeah.
I was the kid that wore a different Brewers t-shirt every single day to school. So, nope.
Not today.
But I got the iPhone case.
Nice. Brewers iPhone case, ladies and gentlemen.
I have the wallet.
Oh my God.
So,
how old is that?
Not very, actually. It gets replaced when it gets too
Brewers
old.
wallet.
Yeah. Anyway, huge Brewers fan, still am, to the point where like people I grew up with and like last year when the Brewers were almost in the World Series,
Everyone
I would
got a
hear
hold
from people from high school
I got a
because
hold of you.
when they think of the Brewers, they think of me, and I'm very touched by that.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. Anyway, I really got into radio when I was very young, listening to Z104 in Madison. My Uncle Bill was on the radio at a place called WISM, W-I-S-M, in Madison.
Okay.
And he talked to me on the radio one morning.
When you were a kid?
Yeah. I had complained to him that the baseball scores are too fast. He just did the winners. He goes, he'd say, winners in baseball, Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, Milwaukee. He would just run through them like that, the teams that won. I don't know who benefits from that minimal information. But so I said to him, you go too fast. And so the next day he said, the baseball winners, Milwaukee, Chicago, Baltimore. Is that all right, Mark? And I was like, oh my God. And honestly, that may be why I ended up getting into radio, because that really put a spark in me.
How old were you?
I was probably 7 or 8 when that happened, but that was a big one for me. But I got very into Z104 and really wanted to be in radio. So there was part of me that wanted to be a baseball announcer, because that combines my loves.
Yes.
That came later. So it was those two things, and I also wanted, then later I wanted to be David Letterman. I wanted to be a late night talk show host.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Right.
those were my main. There were a bunch of things I really wanted to be, and I did none of them.
Well, you're in radio.
I am in radio, that's
We'll
true.
get to that, but you're in radio. You do the stuff.
Yeah.
So then growing up in Monona, how did you hear about ComedySportz? How did this become part of your life?
We were in high school, and it was the day of the solo ensemble competition, where we all went to Jefferson, Wisconsin, and sang or played instruments.
And what did you do?
I was a drummer.
You were?
And I was a singer, yeah.
You sang?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
But not solo. Like I was in a probably like a madrigal kind of a thing.
Okay.
Or a barbershop quartet.
Okay.
And we performed that, and then I would perform a drum thing, and you would get a first or a second or a third. That's how they graded you.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the day. And then that night, a bunch of the people that I had been with, I remember Kathleen Marinick was one of them. She was kind of the leader. They were all going to go to ComedySportz, which I'd kind of heard the word before, but didn't really know what it was.
The Madison Troupe.
The Madison Troupe, which was
Okay.
in the back of a Pizza Hut on State Street at the time.
Okay.
Great room, though.
Yeah.
Because they had an upper seating area.
Yes, I remember
that
that.
looked down on the stage. So it was like an upper deck.
Yeah.
Like for a sports-themed improv show, it was
Right.
really perfect. And they had a live band. Not just a keyboard player, a drummer, a guitar player, and the keyboard player would sing.
Wow.
It was phenomenal.
Awesome.
And so halftime was great because they would just jam for 20 minutes.
Right.
There were and they would make up songs for all the games, like, oh, we're going to play Moving Bodies. They wrote a full band song theme for every game that they played.
That's amazing.
It was fantastic. So I went to this show, and I was blown away because I had done plays and I had done performances, but I hated learning lines.
Okay.
But it was just part of it.
Right.
But when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, they're not learning any lines.
No.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Mark Hervey, Cohen Bailey, Josh Lewis, Mike Rock, Andy Wallman, Chris Tallman were all in this show, Mary Parmentier. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Like,
Nice.
quite literally, the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I laughed the entire time. You can't say that about movies,
No.
TV shows, anything. I laughed the entire time. And I thought, I got to do that. And my personality is 100%. If I'm
Yes.
into something, I'm 1,000% into it. And
Right.
so every Saturday from then on, tickets
stalked them?
tickets went on sale Monday at 5. And I would
Right.
call Jen Dungan, who sold the tickets, every Monday at 5 and get 2 tickets in the front row. And I was there every Saturday at 8 for months.
Yeah.
I would bring dates. I would bring my buddy Todd most of the time. And we were there every single week. And I just never got tired of it. And I signed up for workshops. That was spring of 88. And I
Okay.
signed up for workshops immediately.
Okay.
They didn't call until fall of 88. And I went to my first workshop in the fall of 88.
Yeah.
And Brian Judkins, who I had known since kindergarten,
Okay.
happened to be there. We didn't know that.
You didn't know that
no
Brian was
idea,
there.
No clue. And a guy named Scott Schrank, who I also went to high school with, no idea he was going to be there.
Okay.
I also had no idea that high school kids were not invited to this.
See, I was going to say, now, did they have high school leagues
They
then?
They did. They didn't have one at my school.
Okay.
But there was a special workshop for high school kids.
Okay, yes.
We were not invited to this, but they didn't know we were in high school. We never told them, not on purpose. We weren't
You just
keeping that
didn't know.
information. We just signed up.
Yeah.
So we were 5 weeks in probably of the workshops when Mike Rock, who was running the workshops,
Right.
found out we were in high school, and he kept calling us the high school wieners. But he didn't. It didn't bother him.
Okay,
he kept
good.
us going. And then on June 15th of '89, so I was a week out of high school. I just graduated.
Okay.
They asked us to come down to do, they said, it's a Thursday night. We might cancel the show because the crowd's going to be so small. And if they do, we'll do a workshop. So
Okay.
why don't you come down and, dress for the workshop?
Right.
And that was his way of saying, you're playing.
So was it always those sneaky surprise?
Very
Because that's
sneaky.
what you guys did to me.
That's
in
why we did that
Madison.
to you, because the Mike Rock. You should talk to Mike Rock on this show, by the way.
I should get Mike Rock
Yeah.
on this show.
Anyway, so we went down and he told us that, hey, so here's the deal. Brian, you're red. Judy Bernstein, you're blue. And I thought, whew, not going to be me tonight. Mark, you're the designated jokester, so you're on both teams. And that was my first show, and that was quite an experience.
Do you remember anything from that show? Or
I
were you
remember being terrible and knowing I was terrible.
Okay.
Like, Judkins got a laugh, and I was jealous of that because I didn't get any laughs. I was kind of a mess out there.
Really?
But that's all I remember.
Is it just because of stage fright?
But I don't know why Mike thought we were good enough to join because
Really?
we really weren't any good.
Well, did you-
Brian was pretty good,
Okay.
and I was his best friend, and maybe that's why I
He didn't
got
want to
into
split
it.
you two up?
I don't think I was impressing anybody.
Well, did you start playing regularly then, or how did that
Yeah,
go?
yeah. After that,
You
we
did?
started playing regularly, and also and even more exciting, we got to hang out with them.
Yes.
They were like the Beatles to us.
Oh my God, for sure.
I saw Mike Rock on a payphone on State Street one time, and it was like seeing, George Clooney or somebody out in the wild. Like, oh my gosh, that's Mike Rock. He's making a phone call like a regular
my
person.
God, oh my
Meanwhile, he's a college student in Madison.
Right, he was a college kid when you were there. Well,
Right.
So people that don't know, Mike Rock ended up going on to New York and starting the Burt Furschners.
Yeah.
Which is another improv group.
Yep.
And
sketch.
Yeah. And what else now since then?
He's been in L.A. He was the voice of the Chelsea handler, Chelsea Lately on E! He was the announcer.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what else, but...
Oh, you don't talk to him anymore?
Not much, occasionally.
Occasionally. And you
Like,
still get goosebumps?
We were both at the same Springsteen show. It is still a little intimidating to talk to him. Yes,
Right?
That's a weird thing, but yeah, it's true. Now that
Okay.
he's 50-something and I'm almost 50, it's still weird. But anyway, that was cool. They invited us to play basketball with them.
Uh-huh.
Like, you will not find two less athletic people than Judkins and myself.
Okay.
But we were there on a Sunday morning ready to play basketball because we got to hang out with the ComedySportz people.
So then what happened after you graduated? So this is a week after graduation you
Yeah.
played your first show. You stayed in Madison, right?
I went to college in Madison for 2.5 years.
And what'd you study?
Communications, because again, the radio path. I wanted to
Right.
get into radio. And I was not a good college student because I kind of sailed through high school.
Okay.
And college is a lot harder to sail through.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
And I also wasn't ready for the lackadaisical attitude of come to class, don't come to class. Nobody cares.
You're like, all right, I won't go.
Exactly. I would sleep in. I'd stay home. I remember I'd sit and watch the Dick Van Dyke Show on Channel 9 in the afternoons. Like, well, I could be at school right now, but I'm not. Which is weird to me now.
If your kids did that?
Oh my gosh, I would flip. If I'm paying that kind of money.
Paying for you to sit and watch Dick Van Dyke?
So bad. That's a part of my life I would probably redo.
Would you?
But that's how life is. When
Of
you get
course.
older, you're more into learning. You're more into
Yes.
education. I would be fascinated by a lot of what they were trying to teach me now.
Right.
Back then, it was, how dare you try to teach me? I know everything about the world. Anyway, so I went to college. I was terrible. I studied communications, and Communications 250 was the basic starting communications class, and I
Okay.
got a D.
Oh.
And so I wanted to retake that because you're not going to be a communications major if you're getting Ds.
Yeah.
So I signed up for it again.
Okay.
And I showed up for it again.
Sure.
And they were like, you've already done this class. Yeah, I got a D. You need to go talk to your TA.
Oh.
So I went to talk to my TA. They said, why are you retaking this class? Because I got a D. They said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be in radio. Have you considered like an internship at a radio station? I said, I actually have a job currently at a radio station. And the woman said, oh, you'll learn more there than we could ever teach you. And that was the end of my time at the University of Wisconsin.
And that was it?
That was it. I walked away at that point.
Where were you in radio?
I was at WMAD in Madison, which at the time was in a little house in Sun Prairie. Literally former house. Like you could figure out, okay, I get the bedrooms are over here. Like where the salespeople are was like the dining room. It was just a little house with a tower next to it in a cornfield in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I had sent out, my friend Shannon and I had gotten into WOLX, which is an oldie station. He knew somebody, and we made
Yeah.
demo tapes
Okay.
of us pretending to be on the radio.
Nice.
And I was WMRK. Here's you two. And I sent that to everybody in Madison, and nobody called, but WMAD called. This guy, John Duncan. And he hired me to do weekends and overnights.
Okay.
And that's where the name Mark Elliott comes from.
I was going to ask, you are a man of a million names.
Well, it's radio for you.
Wow. Okay, so you changed it.
Like on WKRP, Johnny Fever had a mug that listed all the names he's been in radio.
That's you.
That's me.
You're Mark Elliott.
Mark Elliott
Wong.
came from I'll get to Mark Wong. That's a better story. But Mark Elliott, John Duncan had the staff vote. It was between Mark Elliott and Mark Roberts. My middle name is Robert, and I was Mark Roberts originally. And
Okay.
He didn't love it. Mark Roberts, Mark Elliott, and Mark St. John.
Mark St. John.
And then the staff voted, Mark Elliott won.
Okay.
And Mark Elliott was the name of the guy that I listened to growing up in the weekly top 30 countdown every Sunday morning. I used to fight tooth and nail with my parents because they wanted me to go to Sunday school. And I wanted to listen to the weekly top 30 countdown. Meanwhile, I've been working for a countdown show for 20 years, so I won that argument. I was right
You were right.
when I was 9.
Mom and Dad.
So that's how Mark Elliott came about.
Okay, and then you got a morning show.
Well, that's a longer road from there. I got fired from MAD because they went bankrupt.
Oh, wow.
I went to Triple M, which is still there.
It is.
Amazingly.
Is that 105?
Yeah, 105.5.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a great station.
Yeah.
In a format that struggles in every market in America. It's called Adult Album Alternative.
Okay.
And it does well in Madison, I
Yeah.
think. It's been there for,
Forever.
I mean, it's got to be coming up on 30 years. Anyway, I got a job there doing overnights. I did 2 to 6 a.m. there for 2.5 years, which is a tough life.
Yeah.
Shout out to anybody who works third shift. Because you become a darker person if you never see the sun.
Right, you're a
In the
vampire.
wintertime, I would never see the sun.
Yes.
So I did that for a while. I got fired from there. Do you want to hear that story?
Sure.
The overnight, I did overnight. So the other overnight guy was named Gabe at
Yeah.
the country station, Y105. And we were right next to each other. And we were not great employees. We'd play video games,
Right.
we'd do all that stuff. And so we would look at, back then when you got paid, it would just be an envelope in your mailbox.
Okay.
So in the middle of the night, Gabe and I would go around and take envelopes out of people's mailboxes and hold them up to the light to see what people are making. And so they overheard Gabe and I talking about what people make, and we got fired.
And you got fired.
Then I went to WJJ. Oh, so this was the crossroads in my life because I was down for like 8 months,
Okay.
unemployed. And I knew I wanted to do baseball. So
Like still play baseball?
no.
Or you
Be a
Okay.
radio announcer a play-by-play announcer. You know,
Right.
Bob Uecker does for the Brewers. And so I was working for the Madison Muskies in '93 and the Hatters in '94, minor league teams in Madison, doing scoreboard and PA announcing and
Yeah.
whatever they let me do. And so for a game or two, they let me just have a little booth to myself, and I broadcast the game into a tape recorder. So I used that and made a demo tape and sent it around. Anyway, I had a connection with somebody, and she got me an interview with the Amarillo Dillas baseball team in Amarillo, Texas. And I thought, this is it. This is the cross. I could tell at the
This is
time,
it.
this is a major point in my life. So I went down to Amarillo for a couple of days, interviewed, didn't get the job. And then the woman I was staying with for a week got a job interview in Austin and left halfway through the week. So then for like 4 days, I'm just like in Austin, Texas, or Amarillo, Texas, knowing no one, with no car, no nothing, just like
hanging out, some lady's house.
Same lady's apartment. Anyway, so I didn't get that job, and then I got the WJJO job, which got me a morning show. I turned a weekend job into a morning show job.
Okay.
And so 95, I was doing that.
And through all this, you're still doing Comedy Sports.
Like I said, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. I did Comedy Sports every Friday and Saturday from 1989 until my first daughter was born in 2006. I mean, I can't. It's not like a Cal Ripken streak. I'm sure there were some missed shows in there.
Sure.
But that was my level of dedication. Some of it's ego. Like I don't want there to be a Comedy Sports show that I'm not in.
Okay. But
17 years, I was all in on it.
Right. What was it? Why did you love improv so much?
I think it was. I feel like there's the world is divided into two people: those who go out on Friday and Saturday nights, and those who entertain those who go out on Friday and Saturday nights.
Sure.
And I really wanted to be on the entertaining side of that scenario.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have the pressure of Saturday night. What do we do? I don't drink. I never have. So I don't want to go to a bar.
Right.
Concerts are fine, but most of them are annoying and loud. Movies are fine, but they're kind of boring. Like I didn't want that. I didn't want to have to decide. I didn't want to be those people.
Okay.
I feel like those are other people that decide what to do on Friday and Saturday nights. I entertain those people.
Okay.
And I wanted that to be I wanted to be on TV entertaining those people. I wanted to entertain them in a million different ways.
Yeah.
So that's why that was my Friday and Saturday night. I never even thought about it.
So at some point in Madison, you and Brian Judkins are suddenly in charge, right?
Yeah, apparently the way that happened is subject to some frustration from people, but I don't even remember that.
So suddenly you guys are the managers in Madison.
I had a 95 maybe at that point. Yeah, something like that.
And in Madison, you guys were all over the place. I remember Pizza Hut. I performed at Upstairs Downstairs.
Well, Wendy's was the main one.
Wendy's. Is that on State?
On State, which is now a Starbucks, if you ever...
It is a Starbucks. You're right, the Upstairs at Wendy's.
State and Lake.
Yes.
And they had an upstairs room, which was beautiful. And I think, and this may have changed, but the last time I was at that Starbucks, the ceiling above where the stage used to be is still raised.
Okay.
Which was done for Comedy Sports so we could have some headroom at the front of the stage. Not as great a room as Pizza Hut, but still a pretty good room because we could get 140 people in there.
Right. That was a good space.
And we did get
Yes.
100 pretty consistently. We were pretty popular for a while.
It was very popular
Yeah.
in Madison, and not just with the college kids. I mean, you were on State Street.
Yeah.
You had families coming in from the burbs.
For sure,
to
but
see the
also I
shows.
love the college element because every 4 years you have a 100% new audience, and that was a
for
great
sure.
thing for us.
Yeah. And you got workshops going there?
Workshops, we had everything going there, yeah.
Okay. And after Wendy's, Upstairs, Downstairs,
Rocky Rococo.
I was going to say, how did Rocky Rococo's on the West Side?
I don't remember. I don't think, Brian ran the company. Okay. He and I were managers in name. But at this point, I think I had moved to Milwaukee at some point in this
You moved
time.
to Milwaukee in...
96.
Was it 96?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
But I think I was still in charge after I moved to Milwaukee. And even when I wasn't, I was doing a morning show, so I wasn't terribly available.
Okay.
It was really Brian and me. I would do the lineups each week. That was my main contribution.
Yeah.
I felt like I was good at that.
You tried to do them like some famous guy that does them for the Brewers.
What?
There's some guy with his handwriting. You told me. I have a lineup in my purse. My first lineup in Madison I found and I brought.
Okay.
Didn't you tell me that? Your handwriting is immaculate. And there's some guy who does the lineups for the Brewers always have. You have no idea what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm not saying you're wrong. It's very possible. It's another life.
Here's the first lineup I was in. It's stuck together.
Oh my gosh. I love that you save this stuff.
Oh my God. You wouldn't believe what I found.
95. 10/27/95. So I was 4 months away from moving to Milwaukee because I was going to get fired from JJO in December.
That might be stuck.
It is, but that's all right. All right, let's see here. These were the first lineups. Friday at 9. We did 9 o'clock shows? I don't remember that.
I thought we did 8 and 10.
I thought so too, but it says Friday at 9. That might have been a Rocky Rococo's thing.
That was a Rocky's thing, then.
Brian booked that deal. I know he knew people because working in advertising, he knew people at Rocky's, and it was a movie theater. It was a dinner theater.
Because they had a huge
Giant screen,
and it was like stadium-style seating.
Stadium-style seating and a stage is all you can ask for. I mean, we were pretty excited about that. But you needed a lot of people in that room to make it alive.
Well, and it took us away from State Street.
That was a major.
I mean, it was way on the west side. I remember taking a bus there. I had to get on a bus.
I think we knew that was a mistake.
Yeah.
Really, an hour and a half on a bus? I think we knew that was a mistake, but I don't think anybody on State Street was offering us a place.
No, was that it? Did you just like
We
run
needed
out
a place, yeah. I think we were out of ID because we were getting kicked out of upstairs, downstairs, which was never a good situation to begin with. That was a bad room.
Yeah.
But Rocky's, like the walls were kind of, movie theaters have walls to kind of absorb sound.
Yeah.
And that's not great for a live improv
Right.
room because you can barely hear the audience laughing.
Yeah.
You need 100 people in there to hear them laugh.
Yeah.
Wasn't an ideal situation.
Well, I remember you saying you did lineups in a certain handwriting. Your
I
handwriting.
mean, this is just my handwriting. I
No,
don't
but
know.
you told me the story.
Oh, but I gave you my official initial. Look at that.
I know because I couldn't believe it that I was at a show because you guys.
So it was you and Judkins against Shapiro and Sablejack. I think I know who Sablejack was. But John Sablejack? That sounds right. I was the DJ, so I was on both teams.
Yeah.
Steve the Weasel Murphy on sound. Love that guy.
I think he's in town here.
Is he really?
He's a doctor at a clinic on the south side.
That makes sense. He was a brilliant guy.
Yeah, he
and
was
so
studying
funny
with-
and so kind.
Oh, right.
Like that's a nice thing to say about somebody, isn't it?
really is.
He is a kind person. And Joe Thompson refed, and then what is this down here? Just like a different show?
I think a different show. I don't know.
And that was Shapiro, the same people. Oh, Sarah Presley. I don't remember much about her, but I remember her existence. Matt Finale.
Finale.
I still see him on Facebook. Wow. That is a beautiful.
Isn't that
little
lovely? I
piece
saved it.
That's so nice.
Oh, you wouldn't believe the
What do
things
you
I
remember
found.
about your first show?
Did
you feel like you sucked the way I felt like I sucked at my first show?
No, Mark, I'm always incredible. I'm just a shining star. I just remember the whole switcheroo, like you said.
We lied to you?
Yes, Alex Shapiro was driving me, which it's amazing I'm alive. Did you ever drive with that
Yeah,
guy?
yeah.
Because he would drive down the
I got
wrong way
real
on
sick.
a one-way. Oh,
Yeah.
it was terrible. He's the worst driver. I love him, but the worst driver. And he was taking me out to Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
It was out in Rockies. And I remember complaining the entire ride, like, Brian's just jerking me around. I'm never going to do a show. He says I'm going to do a show. What a jerk, blah, blah, blah. And then, Alex is like, yeah, it'll be okay. And he's trying to console me, but not give anything away.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we made the ride there. And
Yeah.
we got out, and I'm in a bad mood. And I'm like, why do they even want me out here for the show? I have to sit and watch it, and this is ridiculous. And then I go up, and
But we wanted you to watch? That was the premise that we brought you out under?
I think so. I wasn't working. I mean, I wasn't like doing sound or anything. I just like had to go. And I show up and then I look at the lineups. I don't know if it was you or Shap told me to look at the lineups. And I looked and I felt like the biggest idiot. And I turned to Shapiro and I said, oh my God, don't tell anybody what I just said. And my name was on the lineups, and I just stood there staring at it. I couldn't believe it.
That's such a different mentality. Like for ours was not. I wasn't complaining. I didn't realize. Like we'd been in workshop for like 8 months, but I didn't.
See, now I sound snotty.
No, it doesn't, because it's just a different thing. Like you saw other people probably start playing. You probably understood the process.
I believe Finale started. I had mono at one point, and that's when Finale got the show.
I remember that for some reason.
And I was always sick. I weighed like 100
yes,
pounds.
that's what I really remember.
I had walking pneumonia. I had mono. I'd cough and break my ribs. I mean, I was a mess. And anyway, so I knew Finale was already playing, and I was like, well, why does he get to play and I don't get to play? Oh,
I get that.
So I think the show, I sound really snotty now.
No, you don't sound snotty. It's just different expectations. I would have probably felt the same way.
Well, because I believe they were saying the whole time, like, you guys are going to play, you're going to play, you're going to play.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like, win. When is this going to happen? And it just kept hanging around.
It's not snotty. I get it.
So anyway, back to you. So we're at Rockies.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're commuting to Milwaukee. You are working with Laser 103.
Yeah, I got fired from the JJO job in December of 15, right before Christmas, those SOBs.
Yeah.
And that was just for ratings reasons. They kind of cleaned house because none of us were making it happen. If I may gripe for 1 second, my ratings, I went from a 2.6 to a 5.2. So I doubled the ratings, but then they stayed, and they really wanted to get up 8s and 9s, and I was just hovering at a 5. They wouldn't give me a sidekick. They wouldn't give me a producer. They wouldn't give me somebody to answer the phones. They wouldn't give me anything.
So you did do all of that?
Basic morning show stuff. And then when they fired me, they brought in a show. They were called Crash and Burns in the Morning, and they had a producer, and they had a phone. I was like, if you'd have given me any of that stuff, I could have done something with that job. Anyway.
Oh, boy. Well, it led to greater things.
And then they got fired, and they brought in Johnny Danger, who I think is still there.
Still there, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was very close to in that little line of everything. Who knows? Played my cards differently. I could still be doing mornings at JJO.
I don't know if you'd be as happy.
Maybe not. So yeah, I got the job at Laser 103 in Milwaukee. Same thing, weekends, hoping to impress somebody, and then I got evenings, 7 to midnight.
I was going to say it was late. Wasn't it overnight? Because I remember you would play the 7:30 show. And as we were doing the
National
Anthem during the 10, I'd watch you leave.
Because I didn't drive to Milwaukee.
Yeah, because you had to drive. So you did the 7:30.
When I started, it was overnights. Yeah. They always put you somewhere where you can't do too much damage when you started a radio station. Okay. The problem is now those jobs don't exist anymore. They're all automated because all stations are automated now. Okay. Nobody's actually pressing play on the CD anymore. It's all in a computer. Okay. You just hit the button and the next element plays. But now at 2 to 6 a.m. is just either a DJ who's pre-recorded the show or no DJ at all. And that kind of stinks because that's where you get the next level of talent is people who start there and figure it out, and then they get to move up to better shifts, and then they have careers in radio, where now that doesn't exist. And I do think that's going to be a problem.
I remember, this is just a stupid side story. When you were in Milwaukee doing the overnight show, I was home for a weekend at my parents' place. And we were on the phone together. You were playing music. We're on the phone.
You and I were very close friends for a while there.
We were. Yeah. And I remember I went into the bathroom and there was like a bajillion spiders. You know, like a spider explosion. Yes. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. And I freaked out. And I was talking, or I called you. And I was like, you have to come over and you have to kill all of these spiders. And you're like, Rolo, I'm on the radio. I'm like, play like In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. It's like 17 minutes and you have to come over here and you have to kill all these spiders. And you were like, I can't leave the radio station. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember
that. That was just
That's
a
hilarious.
Side story. But you do things, I remember. It'd be like, prove you're really there and controlling
that
everything.
I kind of remember.
And you'd like make the volume go up and down really quickly that like nobody would notice. And I'm like, oh my God, you just did that. I was like really excited about that.
Which is really irresponsible to do, by the way. But that I think I do remember that, sure.
So anyway, so you went from overnights. And you're still playing a bit in Madison, but then suddenly you're doing nights and you leave Madison altogether and you move to Milwaukee.
I moved to Milwaukee. I did 7 minutes. And then I became a player in Milwaukee, which was exciting for me because that was always kind of the, growing up a Brewers fan, Milwaukee was a big deal. Yeah. So being on the radio in Milwaukee, thinking Brewers players could theoretically be listening to me.
Oh, my God.
Doing comedy sports in Milwaukee. That was a big deal. That was exciting.
So talk about the difference. I suppose we should get back to improv.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Talk about the difference between playing in Madison and playing in Milwaukee.
It's a very different vibe between the two, which I think caused some weirdness between those two cities because Madison was way into... Look, I was a weird fit for Madison, I think, in some ways, because there's two ways of looking at improv. There's the entertaining the audience is the goal. Yeah. And then the other side is that art is the goal. Oh. There's a lot of improv troupes that dress all in black and they're barefoot. And they're on a black stage. Oh. And they just create a world. Right. And I'm not that. No. I just wanted to hear people laugh. That's the addiction, is the sound of people laughing. Sure. That's all I cared about. But in Madison, there was a lot of these, young college students, and Judkins he really kind of spearheaded the whole thing. Sure. Let's do new things. Let's evolve as an improv group. Let's challenge ourselves to do different things than the same jokes night after night. Because some of those games you can do in your sleep once you've done them 100 times.
Because there's built-in shtick in some
games.
games.
Some of them have a certain arc to them or bits to them that it's easy. Yes. Changing emotions is not a challenging game. Yeah. Blind line, moving bodies. There are a lot of games that once you do them a few dozen times, and you and I did them, and you still do them hundreds and hundreds of times. Yeah. You could sleepwalk through them. Yeah. And Brian's thing was, if we're sleepwalking through games, nobody's winning from that. Let's try new stuff. Let's combine games. Let's come up with new games. Let's change the show. And my feeling, and I think Milwaukee's feeling, is we just want to entertain as many people as possible at any given night. Because if they're laughing their butts off for 2 hours, they're coming back. Right. If we experiment for 2 hours, a lot of those people aren't coming back because you just never know. Right. I want to play the games that work. And that was an issue because I became this older guy who was stuck in his ways, the fuddy-duddy, who just wants to play the same games over and over again, who has a list of games that he accepts that we'll play, and he refuses to do these other games. And that became an issue, but never a bad one. But anyway, that's the mentality between the two cities, in my opinion.
So you enjoyed Milwaukee?
I did enjoy playing in Milwaukee. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I was, when you're young, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. You'd find reasons to be like, oh, that guy doing the same bit again. Well, the reason you do that is because that guy's getting more laughs than you are,
Sure.
When people are more successful than you on stage, you're like, oh, that guy doing that same shtick. Look at him up there falling down like an idiot. Meanwhile, the audience is in tears.
Right, they're loving
laughing
it.
so hard. But it's an insecurity.
Sure.
And when you get older, you realize that, oh, yeah, I was kind of a back then. I wanted it to all be about me, 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 me. I wanted to be the best one. I wanted to be the one that got, at the end of the show, when they announce your name and you run off.
And the crowd goes crazy for one person.
I wanted to be that person, and I was so annoyed when I wasn't that person. It's
I'm
just
sure
ego.
you were sometimes.
Occasionally, yes, but it was always Kurt Scholler.
Oh, Kurt Scholler.
Kurt Scholler was the funniest. And Kurt is to this day one of my best friends. He's the godfather to my youngest daughter. We see them all the time.
Yeah.
But back then I was such a I was just like, oh, Kurt getting laughs. Like, really? Like, come on. But it was competitive.
It was, yeah.
It was competitive for me. It
For
wasn't
you.
for him. Because he always killed.
You didn't need to be competitive. He
Right.
was winning.
Right. And then he and I moved to LA together.
I was going to say, well, then here's this guy that you're like, ugh, Kurt Scholler. You moved to LA with him. You left
I loved
Milwaukee.
him. I loved him then. I loved him
Yes.
now. I got bitter because he was better than me on stage.
Yeah.
And then we moved to LA together in 98
Right.
with our cars full of stuff and talking to each other on CB radios because we didn't have cell phones.
I remember you leaving.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember the radio.
And I had just started dating Amy
Right.
6 months before that.
You met her at State Fair.
I met her at State
Your
Fair.
lovely wife.
Very good.
I have a good memory for back then, not
been
for
together-
now. I don't know how I got here
Yeah,
today,
that's
but
we've been together 22 years now.
Oh, my
Married
God.
17.
well, congratulations.
So that was a tough day. We left February 28th of 98.
Did she leave with you?
No,
Okay.
she came out 6 months later.
That's right, she came later.
Her aunt and uncle gave her an opportunity to live with them in Huntington Beach.
Oh, okay.
Seemed too good to be true,
Yeah.
and it was, and they don't speak to this day. That's a whole other story. But it got her out there.
Drama.
It
Okay.
was drama.
That'll be a different podcast.
So Kurt and I moved out. We moved in together with this guy JD out there in this place called Valley Village, and the competitiveness continued. Kurt and I have never talked about this, but it was the same thing. It's like, who's going to get an agent first? Who's going to book a commercial first?
Do
It
you
was
think he
this-
felt that, or was that just
No,
you?
I think he felt that too, because I remember when I think, because here's how it went. Like I was more quote unquote successful right away out of the gate.
Okay.
And I could tell that bothered him a little bit, which totally I get.
Yeah.
Then he became much more successful than I did. And he's still acting to this day. It's
Right.
been how many years? 21 years. But at the beginning, I booked a commercial right away with Coors that never aired, but it was going to be a whole
Can
campaign.
I find it on YouTube?
Nope.
Damn.
It was a whole campaign where
You did a beer commercial
I did a beer
and you
commercial.
don't drink it
Yep,
all.
I've never even tasted beer. I thought you once when I was 14. They have glasses of beer.
Yeah.
And they're at a wedding. And and there's chaos all around you. Like
Yeah.
the bridesmaids are all beating the crap out of each other. But if you look through the beer, everything's fine. Everything's wonderful. And so we shot the commercial. And it was going to be a whole campaign of people looking through beer and seeing a much better world.
Right.
And then they killed the whole campaign for whatever reason. And I barely got any money from that. But when I went in to loop it, where I go in and do my vocals over again for pickups, they said, while you're here, you want to do a Zima commercial? I was like, yeah, sure. So I put my voice around in the back of a Zima commercial, talking like a radio guy. And I got paid for that for years. I
You
just
did?
kept getting checks for that. It's very strange how it works out there. I got a Coors commercial. I got a movie. Like a short film kind of a thing. And then I got a feature length, but nobody has ever seen these movies. And then I got a TV show called The Fox Family Double Feature. And that was all in the fall of 98. Like
Okay.
right after we got there in March, and by fall I had booked all this stuff.
And
I
what was
like,
your goal? Your goal was to be the next David Letterman.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, he wasn't there yet, but what Ryan Seacrest is now is what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to do. I've wanted to do some radio
Yeah.
and be a TV host.
Okay.
And then it just, every one of those things I mentioned fizzled out. The Course Spot never aired. The movies were never seen by anybody. The TV show, the Fox Family Double Feature, that was right before ABC took over the Fox Family Channel and made it the ABC Family Channel. They didn't like our show and they didn't use it. Like every one of those things fizzled. And then I don't think I ever booked another thing.
And Kurt was laughing because now he books everything.
And then he just started booking and he's been doing fine. Yeah. So.
Okay.
But that competitiveness was definitely there. There was definitely a weirdness there. But it's the same thing. It's just ego. It's just, but we've always been close. It's never been spoken, you know.
Well, see, that's interesting because when I think of you, I wouldn't think of ego at all.
Well, thank you.
I
That's
would
nice.
just think you were always so comfortable on stage. Did you ever get nervous doing a show? I'm talking comedy sports.
Yeah, I
Did you?
mean, at the beginning, I was terrified to do a show. And if you watch any of my summer '89 shows, which are out there somewhere, I think Rock has a ton of VHS tapes. Maybe not anymore, but he did.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, and you can tell that I'm nervous up there, that I'm just scared. I'm always pulling on my shirt because I'm not in very good shape, and so the shirt was kind of clingy. Like, it's all just self-consciousness.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like we were talking about before, you start to get good at those games.
Right.
And then the confidence starts to build from there.
And what's your favorite game? What was your favorite game?
I had two because, like I said, you can sleepwalk through games. The games that you couldn't sleepwalk through were my favorites. I loved forward reverse for that reason.
My favorite.
But that's why, because you have to concentrate 1,000%.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same with 5 things.
Yes.
Like, you really have to focus on what you're doing up there.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 things is a different animal because if you get too good at it, the audience doesn't buy it anymore.
Right.
And that's a weird element to that game.
Yeah. You almost have to fake that you don't know it sometimes.
If anyone doesn't know 5 things, you get activities from the audience that are random things, like you're swimming through ketchup with President, at the time would have been Bush, and then you have to use mime and gibberish to get the other person to know what it was. So you really have to focus on that, but you get so good at it.
Right.
And then you get it so quickly. The audience is with you, it's with you, and then like that, it's like, we call on this entire show. And you can't get them, it's hard to get them back for anything after that.
Totally.
And we don't cheat. You always get accused of cheating. And
Right.
we would never cheat, because what's the point of that? But we were so good when they thought
Were you the guesser
worst.
or did you mime?
I preferred giving the clues.
You did?
I felt like I was really good at giving clues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you went to LA, how did you start playing out in LA?
James Bailey was the greatest. James Bailey runs it out there, and we saw him at a tournament in '96, I think. And he said to Kurt and I, "You guys come out, you'll be playing immediately." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." Because now you're a stranger in a strange city, and yeah, you have Kurt and JD, but now you have a social structure. You have structure to your week, those shows on Friday and Saturday nights. You're not just sitting home waiting for your agent to call you all day long.
You have something to do.
And I started teaching high school leagues and reffing high school league shows
did?
all over Southern California.
Okay.
Which was great because I learned the freeways, I learned the whole layout of the land, which was very beneficial to my future LA radio career, to know where Claremont is and La Puente and El Toro and Mission Viejo. You need to know that stuff.
Sure.
And that's how I learned all that stuff, was teaching high school leagues. I was a terrible teacher.
What? Why do you say that?
When you teach anything, you want to be Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society. You want to inspire people.
You really do.
You want them to, years later, they'll find you on the street and they'll cry when they tell you what you meant to them.
You inspired
I was
me.
awful. Like, Natasha Arnold is Kurt's wife.
Yes, she's
another
amazing.
dear friend. She is a teacher. She's
Yes,
one of those teachers.
she is.
And that literally happens to her. She'll be at Target, and a woman will come up to her with tears in her eyes, telling her how she changed her life, and now she's a successful blah, 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 because of Natasha. That's her. I'm not that. We would do an hour workshop, and I don't know who was more excited for it to be over, me or the students I was teaching.
But you're all in, you said. How could that be?
I was all in. I wanted to be good at this.
Yeah.
But it was very clear, very quickly, I was terrible at this. I was so bad. And I don't know what I could have done better. I don't really know what I did wrong either. I just know that they were just over me
It
very
wasn't your
quickly.
thing. So you stopped then high school league there? You stopped doing
I did it because I was paying my bills with it. I mean, I had to do it for years. And then I started at Disney in 2001. And then I stopped doing the comedy sports stuff. High school league, still did the show.
But you still did the shows. So
Yeah.
talk about the difference then between LA and Milwaukee. Or
LA's,
LA and
LA's more of a Milwaukee vibe than a Madison vibe.
Okay.
In terms of just wanting to entertain, which I appreciated. LA's different because it's all aspiring actors. It's all people with headshots and
Right.
agents, and they're trying to get commercials and they're trying to get movies, and it's fascinating. Do you watch Barry?
No, I want to. I don't have HBO.
Barry's fantastic.
Yes.
Borrow somebody's username and password and get HBO Go.
Okay.
Which is what I did. I don't even remember whose it was. But those people in there are a great representation of Comedy Sports LA or any troupe in LA, because they're all actors and they're all very into themselves and wanting to perform. But in Madison or in LA, I performed with some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Frank Maceo. Do you know Frank's in Minneapolis now, but holy crap, when you watch him do improv, it is like watching an artist at work.
Nice.
He was so good and so funny and like so comfortable and so confident, and he had such an economy of movement. Like he wasn't all over the place like some of us are. Right. He would do the exact amount that was necessary. Okay. Watching him mime smoking a cigarette was art. I mean, it was just perfection. The audience was so entranced by everything he did and hilarious.
Right.
Brilliant guy. Jeff Davis is a brilliant guy, and he still tours with Whose Line Is It Anyway? Chris Tallman, Kurt Scholler, some of the Wisconsin guys that got out there. I mean, just intimidatingly good people up there that make you think, I don't even belong up here. But I know certain words that will get the audience to laugh. Like that was my thing. I got good at the games. I've never said I'm a great improviser. I'm good at making people laugh through the games.
Okay.
Kurt was is a great improviser.
Yeah. Frank,
Jeff, these guys, just give them an empty stage and they will go out there and make magic. And I was like, I can do a funny...
So you think you figured out like the shtick?
Yes, I figured out the shtick.
Okay.
I figured out the elements of each game that would work, that got laughs. And not that I was doing the same jokes every time, but I just kind of figured it out.
But you knew the formula.
Yeah, I think if you put me in an improv troupe that didn't have those games, I don't think I would be very successful.
Really?
Because I was never great at at LA, they do the full-length musicals.
Oh, God. Okay.
I felt like I was never great at those.
Yeah.
I did them, and some were better than others, but I never felt like I was great at them. Same with games like freeze tag. Mm-hmm. I always had trouble finding my place in freeze tag.
I did too. Finding my way in. So I like to start it, so then at least I was on stage once. If you could start.
I did the same thing.
So the crowd will be like, oh yeah, I've seen her before.
I always would start freeze tag.
Yes, and
same
then you're
reason.
out and you're like, oh, I'm out. I'm not going back up.
Because it goes so fast.
It does.
And I overthink, which in improv is the worst thing you can do is overthink. Mm-hmm. But I was always thinking, I was always trying to jump ahead, which you're not supposed to do, and find a joke and find a place to go with it.
If they do this position, then I'll go in and I'll do this joke.
Or worse, this joke's funny. Let me wait for a position that works for the joke that I already have in my brain.
Yes.
Yeah, it's terrible. Not the way to play the game. And I've sat out a lot of free-for-all freezes.
Sure.
Because I didn't know what to do.
But you always knew pop culture because I remember you saying you would record on your VCR 90210, Melrose Place, all these shows. And I remember asking you, do you like these shows? And you're like, no. I'm like, why are you watching them then? And you just needed to know the pop culture references.
Because references would get laughs.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, do you know Pat McCurdy?
Yeah.
Pat McCurdy was the genius at this.
Yeah.
I used to go see Pat McCurdy, who's still doing it.
Yes.
But in the early 90s, I'd go see him. And he knew his audience was college kids, so he would make sure to watch Days of Our Lives.
Oh, my God.
Because all the college kids would watch Days of Our Lives between classes. And he would make a reference to Patch or Marlena, and the place would go nuts. And I was like, that's it. I need to do that. So yes, I would tape all the great shows of the day, the big shows of the day with young people, so I could make a reference that they would laugh at. Yeah, that was big for me. And that's still, honestly, I still do that.
Do you still?
I don't like
record all these ridiculous
I don't
shows.
watch those ridiculous shows, but I make sure I know what they are and who the characters are because now I produce a radio show, and so that stuff's going to come up.
Yeah.
And Ryan needs to know about those shows.
Ryan Seacrest. Mark works for Ryan Seacrest.
We'll get to that, I guess. But I need to know that stuff so he can know about that stuff.
Right.
Like I read when 50 Shades of Grey was the biggest thing in the world. I read that book.
Was it good?
It was. The first one wasn't bad. The second two were rough. But that way I could give him references to make it sound like he's read the book.
So you're doing the research and giving him the inside information.
But it's the same idea.
So now you worked for Shadow Stevens.
I never worked for Shadow Stevens.
Who'd
You're thinking of Rick Dees.
Rick Dees, that was it. Rick Dees. You worked for Rick Dees out in LA, and now you're with Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah, when I got to LA, here's a story, because I mentioned him earlier. John Duncan, who hired me at WMAD.
Right.
I was working at KLOS in Los Angeles at the time. There's my in.
Right.
Got a radio job waiting for me.
Sure.
Called him out there before I left. I said, hey, I'm coming out. He said, oh, great, man. That's how he talked. He would laugh like he'd go, mwah, mwah. That's how he laughed. Yeah, man, give me a call when you get out here, man. It's going to be great. Oh, great. Oh, awesome. Get to LA. I called him 10 times. He never called me back, that SOB. And now he's gone. I don't know what he's doing now, but that's a big station in LA, KLOS. Yeah. Mark and Brian in the morning. Anyway, still a little bitter about that. I tried everything, didn't get into radio. Then I went into ComedySportz, trying
Right.
to be an actor, trying to be a host, didn't work. Got to Disneyland, did an improv show at Disneyland, hosted the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show at Disneyland.
Okay.
Best job I ever had to this day. That was 2.5 years I did that.
Yeah.
And then that was dying.
Okay.
We went from 13 shows a day to 7 to 5 to dark on Mondays. Like the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
And now I was married.
Okay.
So I knew that I can't just go back to being a guy who sits home waiting for an agent to call him.
Right.
So I sent out my tape again to every station in town. My tape is now 6 years old, but I sent it out and let's see what happens.
Sure.
And a woman named Julie Pilot calls me, and she was running KIIS-FM. She was the music director and assistant program director at KIIS-FM. She called me and said, look, I want to be really clear about this. We don't want you on KIIS-FM, but you have a lot of experience. Would you come in and run a board, which is a behind-the-scenes thing?
Okay.
When the DJ is out on a remote, when the DJ is pre-recorded, when the DJ is not in the studio, somebody has to press the buttons with the computer,
Okay.
and that's a board op, and that's what she offered me to do. And I said, you know what? Getting my foot in the door at KIIS-FM Los Angeles.
Sure.
I had a bumper sticker for KIIS-FM on my bedroom door in Monona when I was a kid because my mom's maiden name is Kiss.
No, it's not.
Yes. So KISS, and this was KIIS, but I'll take it.
Sure.
I was making $11 an hour. The other board ops were making 10. I wasn't sure why that was,
Okay.
but I'll take it. And I was at KIIS-FM, and the window, it was the 5th floor, and it was the Clear Channel building at the time, and you could look down and see NBC right there from the window.
Yeah.
It was so excited, and I was doing the same shift. I was doing 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 5
my
a.m.,
God.
pressing buttons. It was real easy, brainless, mindless work. But because the other board ops were right out of broadcasting school, I was the head board op because they were 21 and I was 33 years old, making $10 an hour.
Well, it was something.
Got my foot in the door.
Right.
Met a guy named Clarence. He and I started doing a morning show for Lancaster, which is north of LA. Then Clarence got a job with Rick Dees on the Weekly Top 40. He brought me in as his associate producer.
Okay.
So I did 5 years with Rick Dees.
Okay.
And then, coming around to the other names I've had, Rick got another morning show. He had been on KIIS for 30 years or something, and then he was let go for Ryan Seacrest. And then Rick was offered a job at a news station called Movin' 93.9, the mix that makes you move. And he said to me, I'm doing this, I got to do my Rick Dees voice. I'm going to do a new morning show, and I'd like you to be my news guy. I was like, oh my God, on the air in Los Angeles? Great, yes. And he said, I'd like your name to be Mark Wong.
Mark Wong.
Mark Wong? Well, at the time, I was like, I just want to be on, I'll be Mark Bin Laden if you want me to be. I just want to be on the air in Los
Just
Angeles.
want to be on the air.
I mean, let me do it. So I said, okay. And the reason he gave me was, you could have a great catchphrase. That's the news. You heard it right from Wong. It'll be great. So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but all right, I'll do that. And so for 2.5 years, I was Mark Wong with Rick Dees in the morning, doing the news. And it was very odd because I would go on remotes or something. I would go meet clients, and they always expected a Chinese man to walk in.
Well, your last name's Wong. I can understand.
I went to a dentist, I remember, because we were going to endorse this dentist on the radio, and his whole staff was Chinese. And they were very excited to meet me. And I walked in, and they were very confused. They weren't angry. They were very nice, but they were very confused. And he wanted... At first, it was implied, I shouldn't say that Rick told me to lie, it was implied that I should lie. I should say, like, I took my wife's name or I'm adopted or something like that.
Right.
I did that once, and it was gross.
It didn't
I
work.
felt so terrible because they always have follow-up questions, and I never lied again. So when people would say, how's your name Mark Wong? I'd say, it's a radio name, and Rick made it up.
Right,
That's what I would tell
that's the
everybody.
truth, man.
Yeah, that's it. But my wife would tell people that her husband's Mark Wong, and they would immediately look to my daughter.
And wonder.
They want to see the half Asian child.
Of course they do. And you blonde beauties at
she's
home.
very blonde with blue eyes. And then they were also very confused. And it was a weird time.
Okay.
And then we got fired from that job because the whole station went to Spanish.
Went to Spanish.
Yeah.
Too bad you were Wong.
Too bad I was Wong. And then I was underemployed because I was still working for the Countdown, but I was making a fraction of what I used to be making. And then I started working at a place. I had lunch with a couple of people that a friend of mine set up.
Okay.
And I got 2 jobs out of that lunch. It is all who you know.
Sure is.
Young people, it is all who you know. I wrote the news at KNX 1070, which is a huge news station that you can, once you cross the Mississippi River, you can pick that station up. It's massive.
Okay.
I was their news writer. I worked 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. writing the news. Probably the closest thing to a real job I've ever had.
Really?
It was 8 hours. You got a break. You just sat at a desk and wrote into a computer for hours and hours. Tough job. Because you had to read the whole article and then summarize it as 3-4 sentences from the air. And I remember reading one about a murder in Orange County with children involved. And I was literally tears
crying
down my face as I'm typing and thinking, I am not cut out for this job.
This is too much.
Too much. I did that for 5 months. That's it. But then I got a job at Seacrest, running the national syndicated show. And then after a year of that, I became the executive producer.
And now you and Ryan Seacrest are BFFs.
We've been working together for nearly 10 years.
Nearly 10 years.
I wouldn't call us BFFs.
No?
That's just not the vibe. I mean, he's the boss. We are his staff. You're not friends. You know, he texts me show stuff. He emails me show stuff. There's not a lot of, hey, I saw this movie. You'll love it. Hey, let's get together. It's not that relationship.
Okay.
But he's great. He's great to work for. You know, Rick and Ryan, they both have their ups and downs, but Ryan's a pleasure every day. He's surprisingly often in a good mood.
And what's your name on that show?
I'm not really on it. I'm just Mark the producer. Like, you'll hear me chime in from time to time, but I'm just Mark.
I was flipping through stations when Milwaukee had this show on. I don't think we do anymore.
No, we were on 99.1 The Mix, but they dropped us, and I thought we'd show up at an iHeart radio station, and we haven't.
And you haven't yet.
I don't know why.
But I remember flipping through the stations and hearing your laugh
Oh, yeah, that's what I do.
on the station and being like, oh my God, that's Mark.
If you hear someone laughing in the background, that is me. And I've been a professional background laugher since 2005.
So you're just Mark. You don't have Elliot
Producer
or Wong.
Mark. Sometimes he calls me Mark Wisdom because there's a 25-year-old named Mark on the staff now. He's Mark Youth and I'm Mark Wisdom.
Okay.
My last name's rarely mentioned on the air, which is fine. I'm a peripheral player in terms of the audience's perspective of it.
You love it. You're happy.
It's a great job, and it's a great job for all the reasons I've mentioned before. Now that we know more about me, I love having to concentrate 100%, and I have to when we're live and we're doing a show and we're moving. Dealing with callers, commercials, giving him time cues, what's coming up next, all that stuff is great for needing to concentrate all the time because I hate it if I can't. You know, that's when I'm at my best. So
Has
really
improv
focused.
helped you?
100%, absolutely. You're ready for anything. Improv helps in every aspect of life, in my opinion, and ComedySportz did. You're ready for anything. You're never surprised. You never get flustered. It's a way of just kind of always being on your toes.
Yeah.
And just that level of concentration. And also the pop culture part of it is the same. I need to know what's huge in music, TV, movies, books, podcasts, apps, whatever it is. I need to know about it. And that's been wonderful. And I love that. And I love our staff. It's a great bunch of people. And they keep me very dialed in on the slang of the day and that sort of thing.
Because now we're old.
We're so old. By the way, one thing I've noticed, everything now is cute. Everything is cute with 20-something girls. Everything is cute or not cute.
Okay.
Like, oh my gosh, so cute, cute, cute. Oh my God, cute. Everything. Did you watch that show? Oh, so cute. That movie, that outfit, cute. Movie, cute. Everything, cute.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious.
So you were Wong, you were Elliot, you were Roberts. Where did your ComedySportz nickname come from? Mark the Moleman?
I was just Mark the Moleman because they all called me Mole.
Yeah.
Because my last name is Mohelnitzky. And so my nickname was always Mole. Not anymore. No one calls me Mole anymore. That was very much of that moment.
Yeah.
Now,
I know nobody calls me Rolo, and it breaks my heart. I loved that nickname. You gave me that nickname.
I did give you that nickname.
I know.
Mole died, but you know what everyone calls me now? Marky Mark.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
that's Mark Wahlberg had to get famous. And people call me Marky Mark, and they don't even realize they're calling me Marky Mark.
Right.
And they'll say, Marky Mark, Funky Bunch. And I'm like, stop it. And they'll be like, what? You just call me Marky Mark the Funky Bunch. I did? Like, it's so natural for people to say it. They don't even hear themselves. So there's no more Mole. There's
No more
nothing
Mole.
because it's just Marky Mark now.
Marky Mark.
But Moleman was just from the last name Mole. It
Just got shortened?
Just got shortened to the Mole Man. I don't know if that was given to me by
I was
somebody.
going to say, who did it? Was it Madison?
Probably. I mean, I might have given it to myself. I don't remember where the Mole Man came from, but that's it. It's just from being Mole.
Just from being Mole.
Yeah.
Now, you said you stopped ComedySportz when your daughter was born in 2006?
Because I'm all or nothing, I had to switch to nothing mode. And I didn't plan on that.
Okay.
I didn't, because if I would have, I'm the type would have wanted a final show. Everyone come out and pay honor to me. Like I did in Madison. I did a final show in Madison.
You did.
And I got a pie in the face. I would have wanted a final show in Los Angeles if I knew I was really done, but I wouldn't admit that to myself. Okay. When Allie was born, 2006, the shows were in Hollywood. We were in the Valley.
Okay.
It just, at 10:30 at night,
It's
I was
late.
working in morning radio.
Ugh.
It just, none of it worked.
Yeah.
So I stopped. I've done it very few times.
I was going to say, have you done it since?
Oh, so this is what I want to talk to you about. We talked about this in the car too. I did a show in Milwaukee 5 years ago.
Okay.
Allie remembers it vaguely. Brooklyn, my youngest, doesn't remember it. But I wanted them to see me do it.
Did you do the matinee?
Yeah, I did the Saturday matinee.
Okay.
I don't know who the guys were that I was with, which is good because I'm not going to flatter them. But this is another mentality, a generational mentality. And yes, I was old enough to be their father.
Of course.
You never think that. You're like, oh, they're just going to see me as one of the guys, like Kyle here. He's just going to see me as one of the guys. He's not going to see me as some old man. But of course, that's exactly how he sees it. So I would do it again because I would like Brooklyn to remember it. I would like Allie to see it, but I would need a certain people. I would need you there. I would
Well,
need.
come play with me this Friday.
I'm not doing that. What am I doing Friday? I'm taking Brooklyn to the Brewers game on Friday. It's an annual tradition.
Mark, I'm going to play a couple quick games
Oh,
with you
good.
before we go.
Oh, fun.
I don't know if you're going to know all these games, so if you don't, just pick two that you do
Okay, and
know.
then I just give you my thoughts on that game.
Yeah, and tell me which one you'd rather play.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so he's going to
Not looking.
pick two. Yeah,
Do I have two?
you have two.
Okay, here we go.
Go for it. What do you got?
Oscar winning moment. Don't know it? Sounds stupid. This is why I can't play anymore. Because
This is why I want you to come to the show on Friday night and play with me, because I adore playing with you.
I think I do. You're doing a scene and then the ref yells Oscar winning moment
Yes.
and then you have to like emote and cry.
Yes.
And yeah, okay, I remember that.
Okay.
So like there's one joke. And it's the same joke every time you see that game, right?
Yeah.
You get down on your knees and you cry.
Right.
And the audience laughs.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not feeling it. What else?
Audience sound effects. Okay, yeah, I have thoughts on that one. So this is the one where the audience applies the sound effects. So you do a lot of things in the scene that would require sound effects. You start a chainsaw, stuff like that. Or there's two different ways of playing it. The original way we played is the entire audience does the sound effects. I think the more...
Yes!
Yeah, remember that?
Yes,
Now-
the whole crowd did
Now
it.
you bring somebody up
Now
to
you
do
bring
it.
one
Yeah,
person to
yeah.
the microphone.
Yeah, that one it becomes a focus battle.
Yeah.
And that drives me nuts.
Okay.
Because you'll have one guy sharpening a pencil and then another guy walk right in front of him and mowing the lawn.
Right.
And it becomes a fight for the attention of the audience member and therefore a fight for the attention of the entire audience. Any game that becomes a focus battle can be really frustrating.
Yeah.
Blind line is similar. Moving bodies is the worst for that.
Yeah.
Because, anyway, digress. But yeah, that's a... Being aware of focus, the audience's focus, is a major underrated element of doing improv.
You have so much knowledge
I don't
about
think
improv.
that's- it's just-
I
I'm
do.
just old.
I think it's a damn shame you don't do it anymore. And I think now that your girls are older, you should. I think you should fly in every once in a while on the weekends to Milwaukee, and we'll do a show together.
Well, I mean, that sounds lovely. Sounds
You're
expensive.
like, that's never going to happen. I haven't seen you in 20 years, and I'm going to wait 20 more years.
There's another game?
Yeah, I want you to pick two of these Would You Rather cards.
Would you rather have a strange rash where you sprout multicolored butterfly wings all over your body?
Ooh, or
Or eat pork chops topped with a sauce made of tobacco spit collected from pro baseball players? By the way, tobacco is spelled wrong on this card.
I didn't make the cards.
Okay. Butterfly wings all over my body or baseball player tobacco spit?
I think you're going to do the baseball player because you're weirdly into baseball, and you wouldn't mind consuming their spit.
I mean, I would like to meet the person spitting it, but I think eating tobacco spit would make me pretty vomity.
That would be pretty gross.
I think I'd have to go with the butterfly wings.
That would be pretty.
Would it be forever?
I think so.
I have butterfly wings forever?
You do. You're pretty.
According to this picture, though, it's not like two butterfly wings on my back. Like, they're all over my body. They're
Well, yeah, they
miniature
sprout,
butterfly all
yeah.
over the place.
But the tobacco thing's just once.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
All right, I'll go with the tobacco spit.
I know it. Mark, thank you so much for coming in and doing this podcast.
Thank you for asking me. No one ever interviews me, and as you can tell, I have plenty to say.
You do.
I have a
You
lot
have
to get off my chest.
You have so many wonderful stories, and you are such a part of comedy sports history. It was a pleasure having you.
I could sit here and go through these games with you for the next 5 hours.
Mark and I are going to stay here and play for hours. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Mark, 20 years from now, you and I will do it again.
Another podcast?
Yeah.
I'll be here.
All right. Thanks for coming, Mark.
Thank you, Christine.
You got to call me Rolo.
I never call you Christine. That
Gotta
was
call
weird.
me
It was
Rolo.
awkward. It felt weird on my tongue. Thank you, Rolo.
Thank you.
Oh, Emotional Symphony. Wow.
The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is PJ Rockwell. Feel free to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and inquiries can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Capriolo. Catch you next time.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.